Isn't it?
I
Hey,
like
Stevie.
that.
Hey,
I
everybody.
like that.
Welcome to the podcast, the Outdoor Journal Radio Podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Come on now.
Thank you very much, Dino. Pete Bowman sitting in. Angela's not here. We are on the road. So there's Dean, myself, Avova, and our special guest. For those of you that are not on YouTube watching, my buddy, our good buddy, Mr. Steve Niedzwicki.
Give me a hell yeah!
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, brother. And one of the reasons Stevie is here, the main reason Stevie is here is that, we're on the road and we are actually shooting a Fishing Canada episode at Chaudiere Lodge. And Steve is the former owner of Chaudiere. You're going to hear, by the way, that's a boat going by in the background. You're going to hear some boats right on the water here at the docking area. So of this beautiful establishment. And yeah, we thought we'd bring Stevie along because now we have the former lodge owner now basically here as a guest. And that's probably as unique as it gets, right?
Well, I guess, yeah, it's fairly unique for me.
No kidding.
And I just want to thank you off the top, Peter, for calling me a very special guest. I feel like I've been hanging around you long enough and everybody around that.
I think you deserve it by now.
They all know I'm very special.
Oh, we know you're special. Absolutely. Yeah, so we're set up here. It's early July, early to July.
Well, it's
we thought we'd
third.
That's right after the long weekend. So and we thought we'd, what are we going to do? We're going to Chaudiere. So here's the way it works with Ontario Tourism. So Ontario Tourism, we have a set amount of shows that we got to shoot for them with our contract, and through Ontario Tourism and ourselves, we choose the lodges. So what happens is I'll call our lovely friend Carol Caputo. And
we love you, Carol.
Come on now.
Carol,
the queen of the north.
She's the best, eh? And I'll say, hey, Carol, there's Lodge A, B, C, and D we'd like to shoot at this year. Are they available? And what that means is that they haven't been shot by any other television shows in the last set number of years. I don't know what the number is that Ontario has, but they'll say yes, no, yes, no. So we get a lot of no's from Carol, a lot of access denied from Carol. But she says, oh, by the way, and she gives this little nudge of this, just, by the way, Chaudiere is coming up real soon. And I think she said to me next year. And then all of a sudden at the Sportsman Show, we were talking. She says, you know what? I think you guys could pull it off for this year, sort of like that. So tell me, as a former lodge owner, and now you're come back, because I know I have an opinion already of your opinion, which you'll probably state it throughout what you're talking about.
No,
What do you think?
let's hear what you think, and I'll see if it's right.
So because Steve, as a lodge owner, he came in very raw, very new, but he learned through 10 years, was it 10 years? Through 10 years, he learned what worked and what didn't work. And one of the big things about Steve is if you went to his hotel room, it'd be as messy as hell right now. But as he had a lodge, it was not messy. It was spick and span. It was clean and everything was good. And I noticed that you are really looking around a lot and saying, oh, my God, I'd had that fixed. Oh, my God, I'd had that fixed. That is, I mean, there's little wee things that I didn't even notice coming in here that you'd have that fixed. But yet you'd say, God, the food is still fantastic. That looks great. My God, they did a great job on that. You're really looking at stuff from past and goods and bads and uglies and all that kind of stuff, right?
From living it.
Yeah.
And truly living it in a way where I had to be successful, because if I wasn't, I was going to lose everything, including my parents' farm as security to the business.
Right, which is huge, right? You can't screw up, man. That's it.
At the end of the day, you make it work.
Yeah.
And the fastest way that I learned this from listening to every guest that come through the door for, my whole tenure.
Yeah.
But towards
10-year tenure.
10-year tenure.
Wow.
Yes.
Get that one. There's
Come
a
on
nice
now.
tongue
That's
twister.
a good one. 10-year tenure.
Yeah.
It's a song there. Okay,
But
sorry.
I learned that by listening to people, they see the little things that you don't see.
Right.
One of my goals when I bought the place was to sleep in every bed. But there were 44 beds and 15 cottages, and over 10 years, that actually did not happen.
Wow.
But
No kidding, eh?
there were guests that did sleep in all of the beds and use the cottages, and I made sure that I had a good the one I was not a good lodge owner in the beginning because I didn't know how to do it.
Right.
But the one good thing and the one thing that I was very good at was feeling how people felt. And the dining room was the best place to gauge that. So if I would walk through the dining room and I would make a point to talk to everybody and find out about their day, and I could tell nobody would, unless it was really bad, would breach any kind of conversation about something negative in the dining room. But I knew, I could feel it. You know, when you say to somebody, "How was your day?" and Nancy says, "Nah, it was okay." Well, that wasn't
that's not good enough answer for you.
That wasn't an answer that I was willing to accept. But it wasn't something that I would attack in the dining room. What I would do is I would say, "Oh, okay. Well, listen, Nancy, Bob, would you mind if I brought a bottle of wine over to your cottage and we'll sit in the screen porch and have a couple of drinks and you can tell me about your stay as a whole?" And 10 times out of 10, they say, "Well, yeah, that would be good." And sometimes it was because they wanted to have a glass of wine. And sometimes it was because they wanted to, in private, tell me what was going on, what they were seeing, and what they were experiencing. And it was through those conversations that I learned. And I learned a lot about the small stuff.
Wow, that's a good idea, actually.
The little stuff.
And you get the odd sip of wine, too, right? You
Absolutely.
Get an excuse to have a sip of wine,
and
too.
not only that, it builds a relationship between your guest, who then becomes family.
Yeah.
And it's the small things that you realize, like, yeah, you know, Steve, it was raining today and we come in with all of our wet clothes, and you know, if in this screen porch we had half a dozen hooks on the wall to hang our wet clothes so we could go into the cottage dry. Simple things like that make a huge difference. And then the magic of the situation is, once you build that relationship, 9 times out of 10, they're coming back.
I was going to say that repeat customer is huge in this business,
yes,
right?
But the magic is, if you can execute on a couple of their ideas and they come back the next year and see, holy shit, we've got hangers in our cottage now. That is the magic that people really, really love. And all of a sudden, if you can take a person who comes to a place and they're just coming to a place to go fishing, but then you can empower them to make that place their own and make them feel like my thoughts and wants matter. That right there is the magic.
Yeah.
And I was the other thing that I learned, and to this day I'm very cognizant of, is verbiage and the way I spoke about the lodge. And I was very, very intent on not saying my lodge, because it obviously now it's not my lodge. And I had a guest, Chris Schock. Actually, I had him and his family on the podcast. Chris had been coming since 1964, and we just missed him. They left last week.
Okay.
And Chris said to me one day when I said, we were talking about the lodge, and I said, our place. And he said, wow, Steve, it's not our place, it's your place. And I said, no, Chris, what makes this my place more than your place? Me, the guy being the person who's the curator and paying the mortgage, or you, the person who's been here for near 50 years? You know, why is it not more your place? You've seen this place long before I did, and you'll see it long after I have it. So when you can take a place like this and you can perceptionally give ownership to the people that come and make them feel like it's their place, you've built relationships in this business that last long beyond yourself. And that's the key.
It's interesting. It's an interesting way of going about it.
Well, you can look at it in many different ways. You can look at it financially for me,
right?
Because without those people coming to the lodge and coming year after year, my books look like shit.
Right.
And I can tell you right now, if you get into this business and you expect to get 100% turnover with new guests every year, you're sadly mistaken. You will not last.
No, well, every lodge we go to is a high percentage of repeat customers. Every lodge we go to in Ontario, at least. Even in BC, it didn't matter. I bet you Brabant. Well, yeah, Brabant, the guys are coming back every year too. Yeah. So it's a lot about repeat customers.
You have to have them.
Yeah.
If my repeat customers drop below 70%, I started to get worried and looking internally and asking people why.
Right.
Right. And sometimes sometimes the answers you get are answers you don't want to hear. And the one that I didn't want to hear was the fishing wasn't very good, because that was really the only thing that I didn't have full control of. I had some control over it, and the control that I have over the fishery is making sure that I employ a number of good guides that are on the water every day.
That's right.
Because when the guides go out and catch fish, even if an unguided group comes in and they go out and they fish and they don't have a great day, when they're sitting in the dining room and they hear the group at the table next to them talking about going out and catching 100 walleye and having a wonderful shore lunch with Billy, the guide, all of a sudden then the thought process in the guy's mind that didn't do well is, well, I guess there's fish out there. What are we doing that's not right, and how can we improve? And 9 times out of 10, when I'd go to that table of guys or girls or couples that would had been out on their own, they'd be saying, "Oh my God, did those people really catch 100 walleye?"
Yeah.
And I would say, "Well, I wasn't with them, but I'm sure it must be close," because they wouldn't.
They would have.
They would.
Billy was the best.
Absolutely. But I would say they're not. I don't think they're making it up. And even if they caught half of what they say,
might not have had a clicker on. Doesn't matter. You're all day fish. You're going to catch fish all day long. Do you ever have guests, or did you ever?
Just to finish that thought, all of a sudden those people at the table that didn't catch fish that day, they were like, "Oh, how do we get Billy?" Right. And then you would sell guides in the dining room because people want to catch fish, right? And then that gives me the ability, as the curator of the facility, the ability to go out and hire more guides to get more information, and that whole cycle continues. But there are just some days that the fish don't cooperate.
Of course. I was going to ask you, on top of all this, do you ever have these guests they've been there forever. They don't get guides because they just want to go out on their own. And do you ever have either guides or yourself go right down to their boat with them and put waypoints in their GPS? Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. I think that's a good thing to do. You know what I mean?
Always. Now, the guiding community is a different community.
Yeah, for sure.
And depending on where you are and how you build the community within your business, some guides can be very guarded over water and not want to share
amongst anybody, even your own guides or amongst
absolutely.
You. Like this is he wants to go out there. And he wants to get his tip because he's got the guy a 52-inch muskie.
100%,
right? And you can't blame him for that, but it doesn't work well in a team, right?
Well, what I would tell them, and the way that I run my guides, is I told them, I'm paying you to be here. In return, you need to give me the information that you're getting from the water. But we also had an understanding that I was not going to give up those A spots. There's always 2 or 3 spots where guides need to go and get a shore lunch, to go and produce some fish. But the Upper French River and Lake Nipissing is a massive expanse of water with thousands of spots to catch fish. So the guides didn't have a problem going out and telling people where they can go and catch fish. Oh, I saw fish here. Why don't you try here and do this and try that? And we also turned the fleet of unguided people at the lodge into a source of information for us. And if you can build that relationship with your guides, with myself, and with the guests, and go out and as a team try and figure out the fishery, it works well for everybody.
Oh my God, it's a lot easier with 30 people than it is with 3 people.
Well, information is information.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes hard because the fish, they can move fairly quickly from spot to spot.
As we found out yesterday.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
That's right. And the more people you have out there, and sometimes the information that you get from people you don't think is significant at the time, but when you start looking at a bigger picture and you have more pieces of the puzzle all coming in at the same time, it makes it far easier to be able to say, oh, well, this is happening here and here. And then you'll think, oh, well, Chris and Sue were out and they said that they caught 4 smallmouth on this spot when they were looking for pike. And then you can take that information and you can say, okay, well, it makes sense here. It's all about getting as much information in one time as possible and following the trends of the ecosystem. And when you convince people to buy into that, all ships rise with the tide. So it was a good way that I found to be able to help protect the guides in a sense that they always had that 1 or 2 comfort spots. They always told me, at least they said they told me, and for the most part, usually all of them
give
did.
You most,
For the most part, there were some guides that were truly 100% honest and shared everything with me because they trusted me. You get, if I trained the guides, that's the way they were trained. You get contract guides that come in, obviously that's some of their information and it's proprietary and they keep it for themselves.
Contract guides. So would you get try for a guide from the French River that knows the area, or would you have to get a guy from Georgian Bay to come over and then teach him a little bit, or how does that work when you're how do you pick that contract guide
those contract guides, you always look for people that know the water,
right?
Like it's a bare minimum to know the water, and to bring outside guides in, it works. But you have to teach them the water first and foremost. And it makes it easier now that Garmin has all of their mapping systems and we've got good sonar and all of that stuff. But still, there's a learning curve with it.
Of course.
So I would always look for local knowledge first. And again, sometimes with local knowledge comes a lot of baggage. And at that point, you've got to balance whether it's worth it or not. Because at the end of the day, for me, as far as guiding goes, believe it or not, catching fish was not the number one criteria. The number one criteria always was the experience that the guests felt with that guide. And the true mark of an outstanding guide is when I can go into the dining room and I can go up to a group of people that just come in from a day out on the water with Billy Commanda or Matt O'Brien or Pat Tryon or Peter Bowles, any one of the guides that I had running for me. And I would say to the guest, how was your day? And one of the last things that they would mention was the fishing, and especially on days that were tough, because any angler on a great fishing day can go out and guide somebody and be fairly successful at it. Not many anglers can go out on a bad fishing day and bring guests back in with a great experience. And if you can do that,
that'd be a good guide.
That is the key.
Yeah.
You know, I had a group. I remember Pat actually told the story on one of the Diaries podcasts where, you know, it was a rough day and there were younger kids. And whenever you have younger kids, the goal is always just to catch fish,
panfish, anything,
just
little
catch
smallies, tiny walleye, it doesn't matter.
And for whatever reason that day, it just wasn't happening, and he pulled up onto one of the islands and had the kids go pick blueberries, and at their shore lunch they ate the blueberries, and that's all that those kids talked about. And the other thing you need to do as a guide is you need to quickly assess the people in your boat and the people that you need to work for. And a lot of times when you have a family like that, you're not working for dad trying to catch him a 50-inch muskie. That's not what they want. Even though as a guide, you may want to go out and try and catch a muskie, with young kids, you can't troll for 8 hours and maybe not catch anything. So you need to really assess what the expectation of the group is and then live up to that, not what you think you should be living up to. And in that case in particular, Pat took those kids, they spent 3.5 hours on the shore of some uninhabited island in the middle of the French River picking blueberries. And those kids will take that memory so far beyond, even if they did catch a 50-inch muskie, those kids will never forget it. And as a lodge owner, that's perfect for me, because when I know I've got a 9 and a 10-year-old kid going home, and on the drive home they're saying, Mom, Dad, when can we go back to Chaudiere?
There's a blueberry truck. Let's stop.
that is perfect marketing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is the best marketing that you will ever attain as a owner in this business, bar none. Because those kids talk to everybody, aunts and uncles and this and that. And not only that, they're very annoying. And the parents just bring them back because the kids want to come back, right? So yeah, that's the mark of an outstanding guide.
We interrupt this program to bring you the much-anticipated bonus code for the latest Fish in Canada giveaway. This week's code is HOCKEY, capital HOCKEY, hockey. Just type that in the bonus code section of the contest and receive 100 free entries towards all of our current giveaways. For those of you who aren't entered yet, what are you waiting for? Head over to fishandcanada.com while you listen to the rest of this episode. Click Contests and sign up for all the latest Fish in Canada giveaways. And now, back to the episode. You mentioned a few things in there. First thing is that I love what you said about just the GPS stuff with people, the guides that don't know or whatever. Last night, as an instance, one of the guides came into our boat. We'll talk about our day in a second here, but one of the guides came into our boat knowing that we didn't get any big smallmouth, which is where we're on. Jumped right in the boat, turned on the garments, says, okay, here we go. How do you do this? Because he was used to hummingbird or Lowrance, whatever it was. So he scrolled around, waypoint 1, waypoint 2, waypoint 3. So we got 3 waypoints from a professional guide here like that to check out today or tomorrow if we want. So it's so handy. Nowadays, that stuff is so handy to be able to do that for anybody. You know what I mean? If I want to give Stevie some waypoints on the phone, I can send him a text. Pat, we talked to Pat yesterday. We were getting ideas through the phone and all that stuff. So that's the thing. Now, for our day yesterday, it's funny because you were talking about things that are changing. So we're in this first week of July, and we're basing we were on a smallmouth bass. We wanted to go to Lake Nipissing, and we're basing a lot of our plan on history. And our history of Steve's history, I don't know the lake hardly at all. I've been on the lake maybe once or twice in my life, the main lake itself. And Pat Tryon being one of the best guides Steve's ever had.
And
one
Matt,
of the best.
too.
And Matt helped out afterwards too. So, but these guys have so much history here. Maybe not so much for smallmouth, but definitely more than most people for smallmouth, right? They're more
Absolutely.
musky guys, but they got a lot of small, and they catch incidental fish. Anyway, so we went through a good map session with Pat. And we hit, how many miles did we put on yesterday? We went from here to Doak East Point over
lots.
To what's the other point called?
Jocko Point.
Jocko Point over to the Goose Islands. And then back in towards the shoreline and fished all that. We didn't fish the river at all. And quite honestly, we didn't get a 2.5 pound smallmouth yesterday of all day. You know what I mean? We didn't get a lot of fish at all. And when we told people that, what? And then every guide and everybody that's in the know around this area says, They moved off the shallows. They moved out into their deeper. They're starting to move to their deeper areas, and it didn't even dawn on me really when we're fishing them, because normally you can catch big smallmouth shallow all year long, and they probably are doing that. They're transitioning out, and they may come back in a little bit. But we were trying to figure everything out. So the water was 66 degrees yesterday. Pat was saying, "Oh wow, it was 72 when we were out." He was looking at his records. It was 72 degrees. So you base yourself on history like that, but
there's so many factors with history.
Oh,
like this
it's
year,
ridiculous.
When you look at
the
it,
bait and the bugs and everything else too.
And the ice, there wasn't much ice up here this year.
Makes
it
a
went
huge
out
difference.
early.
You'd think though the water would be warmer, right?
Well, you would think, but I don't think we've had the heat
that spring
other than one big heat wave. Now we've had consistent heat above zero because I got my garden in about 3 weeks earlier than normal, but it was always, the spring's been that 15 to 18, maybe 20 degrees. So
and the nights go down less than
and the
that.
nights are
that's
cool.
where water temperature. And I know people always say, yeah, it's just the surface you're measuring and blah, blah, blah. And that's true, but it's an indicator. What it is just an indicator, you know what I mean? So that you can kind of put in your mind, this is where our starting point is. This is what I use water temperature a lot just to get my mind working in the right direction and all that stuff. But look what Steve's saying, right? This spring it got warm real quick. The ice, no ice, got warm, then it got cool. And look at today, like anybody's watching on YouTube right now, this is cold out right now. This is July, and it's cold out. Right? We've got our hoodies on right here at the dock
cool.
in the morning. And
it might be
rain.
like, I mean, you can hear the gusts of wind. It's probably about 14 or 15 degrees right now for July the 3rd.
Yeah.
And
that's probably not typical.
It's not typical. There have been years like this, though. I remember one year here at the lodge, we had the fireplace lit every day in July. Like it was like this the whole month.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like it's going to be right now for some reason. Yeah. I don't know why, but so we got our butts kind of handed to us yesterday on smallmouth. Do you have any ideas as to why? What do you have in your head now that you thought of it last night? And
well, like I mean, just the whole, once you start to step back and you get more of those pieces of information from all different angles, historical, what's going on now. My feeling is, obviously they've moved off of those secondary shallow areas where they're transitioning out of the spawn, and I think they probably have moved deep because we looked shallow again up into those spawning areas and didn't find them there either. And I think my gut feeling says it was because there wasn't the ice mass. The ice went out early, although it wasn't all that warm. It was warm enough for the smallies to spawn early, and they're just 2 or 3 weeks early. And we're talking a window of a week. Matt was out with Chris and Sue Shock. I mentioned that, and Katie, that they were here last week, and they went to a boulder pile out at the Goose, right where Peter and I were a week ago, and hammered. What did he say?
30 fish in one spot, then moved. And
they
30
didn't
in another.
even move. They put spot lock on, and they caught 30 fish, and Matt said the big ones were around 4 pounds. And we didn't see anything over 2.5 pounds, on the hook or in the water.
On the live scope, we had a couple of incidences where we saw bigger fish in the live scope. We caught them, and they were smallmouth. They were sheephead.
Yeah, sheephead. Well, there's a great story there. We'll talk about that once we finish this thought.
Yeah.
But going back to it, I feel that they're just ahead.
And now, and the thing is, the spots that the guys gave us here at the dock last night, they're all deep. They're deeper than 25 feet. So
those are summer spots.
Contrast. That's a summer spot, and they're river spots too. They're not the same as these fish in the lake. Who knows where these fish in the lake? If they're in a transition mode, I don't care who you are, you're gonna have a hard time finding these fish and then catching them, because I do think we saw some fish yesterday, and literally they would. Of course, we're throwing Yozuri jerkbaits, Yozuri crankbaits, etc. They wouldn't even touch a Ned rig or Steve's Senko. They have a wacky rig, unweighted Senko with an 8-pound Yozuri fluorocarbon line on the leader on it, so that you're thinking maybe it's a line thing. No, any smallmouth in his right mind would hit that. So there's definitely something going on with that, right? We were watching the live scope, and you'd see them. They wouldn't even look at the stuff. They swim. Remember, they were swimming away from our stuff.
Yeah, and the other thing
weird.
We did not see that if the pattern held out is schools of anything. And I feel that when they start to transition out into deeper water, because Nipissing is so shallow and really doesn't have a whole lot of hard structure like the French River, I think a lot of those big bass spread out. I don't think they school up.
Really, smallmouth, yeah.
Well, I don't think on Nipissing you find in the summertime schools of 30 and 40 and 50 smallmouth. Now it might be that those fish are migrating into the French River and schooling there, because you do find big schools of smallmouth. But again, they once you get into late July and August, you can see those fish as deep as 40 feet. Right? Because we'll fish to a maximum of about 40 feet for walleye. And it's interesting, on the sonar, on traditional sonar, you'll see the walleye hooks are basically stuck right to the bottom in the daytime. But if you see the walleye hooks stuck on the bottom and then you see hooks about 5 to 8 feet above them in 40 feet of water, you can just about mark my words that all of those fish above the walleye are smallmouth.
Wow.
And sometimes when you get on a spot like that, it's hard to get your jig through the smallmouth to get down to the walleye. And so Lake Nipissing for me, because this water is so vast, and as an owner, you don't get a chance to fish every day, although that's contrary to popular belief. I don't have enough knowledge on Nipissing, but I know that the boys catching muskies will catch the big ones while fishing muskies, and it's not like they're getting 4.5 or 5 pounder and then 3 more are following.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Okay. So do you think that Lake Nipissing, I mean, with all the guides and all the experience you guys have had, do you think it's a different population than Lake Nipissing versus French River? Do you think that'd be a different population of fish on the average?
I would say,
because I'm wondering why they would migrate into the French River. If it was bait,
yes,
but
it's Cisco's.
It's just Cisco's. Okay,
it's the migration.
Maybe they know.
It's the migrate. At least for the big ones. At least those really, really big fish. I believe that they follow the Cisco's.
What about the lake? Is there no Cisco in the lake?
Not at this time of the year.
Okay.
In the Cisco's in the fall will move out of the lake, and I'm not sure. I haven't seen them personally out in the West Arm. I'm not saying they're not there, but the Cisco's are gonna. I believe the reason that the Cisco's migrate into the river, and the river is a absolute biomass that is unbelievable.
The guys are talking about last night how many Cisco are in there right now.
It's unbelievable, but they're always there in the summer.
Right.
It's just that during the day, you'll turn on your sonar out here and you'll find the average depth in the Upper French River is probably about 100 feet, with a lot of area deeper than 100. And you'll find a layer of biomass that if you took all the water out of it, you could walk on it, between 80 and 100 feet, or 75 and 90 feet, and it is solid for miles. And
and that's between Cisco and the food that they're eating or whatever, like bugs and all that. So is everything combined pretty much?
Yeah.
Wow. So just a whole life form down, like a planet of animals at that level.
Yes.
Wow.
And those Cisco in the fall migrate with the cold water. So they go. I believe they spawn out on Nipissing I'm not sure if they are, but I can tell you, I know that those Cisco's start to move towards the lake, and they'll stage like that 200-foot hole right at the mouth.
You showed me yesterday. Yep.
That's that area. They stage in that area, and then they move out onto the lake.
Okay, well, I'll guarantee you one thing. You said you don't know about the schooling, the smallmouth. If the Cisco's move into the lake, the big smallmouth will school together, and they will be hanging around the Cisco's.
That's in the fall.
Guaranteed, yeah. Guaranteed. They'll
Yes.
be. It won't be 1 or 2 smallmouth. It'll be 200 5-pounders together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or 35 pounders or something like
Yeah.
that. They will school up because they'll
Yeah.
just live off those Cisco.
For sure.
And
Well,
they're smart. They're instinctive. It's a
that's
good,
what
easy meal,
that's what
right?
the big muskies are doing.
Yeah, I mean, a Cisco. If anybody that doesn't know what a Cisco is, you can look it up now, easy on Google. But it's like a herring type of bait. It's like a big shiner minnow, like a giant shiner minnow kind
It's
of thing.
oily.
Like
It's fatty.
It's full of protein.
Full of nutrients.
Yeah.
It's really
one of the best foods they can eat.
If you're
really.
if you're a big fish, and you want bang for your buck, Cisco's is where it's at.
Even small lakes, Hasty Lake has Cisco
Absolutely.
in it. And the big smallies, you saw that. They
Yeah.
were spitting them out.
Well,
we were catching
isn't
them.
it Cisco's that they drop in the lake with what do
No,
they?
it's rainbow smelt.
Oh, rainbow smelt. Okay.
Yeah. But there's a Cisco base in there,
Yeah.
and these smallies and largemouth will live on Cisco and rainbow smelt. The ones that have got onto that game. Some
Yeah.
live in the shallows on frogs and whatever for largemouth. But the smart ones, they get out there and they know that hey, this is an easy meal. So
Listen.
with that many Cisco in here, that makes it harder to catch fish too. By the way,
It's the base of any pattern. What are they eating, and where can they find it?
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. So brings us to our next question. What are we going to do tomorrow? We're not going to go out this because we're going to take a weather day because it's going to be nasty. We can't get in the lake, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think we should be doing tomorrow?
there's 2 options. We hold the course, look for smallmouth, and look deep. We take the local knowledge from the guides that we've talked to, and they've given us some spots to look in 24, 25 foot. If it was up to me to make the plan, I would say let's check out those spots for smallmouth first thing, and then we if they're there and they're of the quality, some are of the quality that we need for TV to show all of our viewers, then we hold the course. But if in those 3 spots we don't find a quality fish, then we've got to have a wee brainstorm,
secondary,
and then maybe move to a species that is more comfortable for me, and I know for you, and that would be largemouth.
Yeah.
I don't think walleye here is an option, especially after Brabant Lodge, where it's just ridiculous. And every walleye you catch is a carbon copy of the other, and they're all big, like really big. It doesn't do us a service or the lodge a service to go out and fish walleye, and already Chaudiere
it's known for walleye.
Throughout my tenure, Lake Nipissing is a walleye haven, and everybody knows that.
Absolutely.
But people don't know that largemouth and smallmouth bass are world class here as well, and that. Among the reason, the other reason is I love largemouth bass. I like smallies too, but they're outstanding, and you can go back and you can look at Ange and I and Pete and I and all of those shows that we shot during my tenure. I was pushing the largemouth because I believe that there are people out there, number one, that will travel to catch good largemouth, especially when they know that they can catch walleye on a whim. And hey, if you want to try your luck and throw your hat in the ring for muskies, I can do that too, right? And then there's just people that like catching fish, and largemouth, when they cooperate, are pretty predictable and a solid resource to go out and
both
enjoy.
Largemouth and smallmouth. If you're going for numbers at a lodge like this, that's the beauty of a Chaudiere Lodge, is that it's got largemouth, smallmouth, walleye, pike, and muskie as their main game fish species. They have more than that, even, believe it or not, but like perch and sheephead, et cetera, et cetera. But you got that largemouth and smallmouth thing, that's your numbers game. So you got a 4 or 5 day trip here. You can't get out the big Lake Nipissing, because you have a muskie pattern going on out there. Well, you know what? I don't want to fish the muskies in the river today. Let's go do the smallmouth for half a day and largemouth for half a day. All of a sudden, you just put a full day in, and you got yourself 20 fish, of different sizes and all that, and had some fun. Come back, got great stories. day 2 or day 3, they go back out in the lake and try and get a big muskie or something like that.
Yep.
So, you know.
Not to mention the northern pike.
I was going to just say, I know
Right.
there's big pike, especially on Lake Nipissing.
Yeah.
Because I've talked to guides in the past where they kept trying to get me up there saying, guys, come on up. We have 40-inch northern, like 35 to 42, 43
Well,
inch
one of
northern,
the
quite a
one of
bit.
the housekeeper servers yesterday
39-incher.
caught a 39-incher trolling
Yeah.
just out front.
Yeah, so there's
Right.
that. And you know what? A 39, 40-inch pike is a quality fish. I don't care what anybody says. A 40-inch
100%.
40-inch pike is, you're pushing 17, 18 pounds anyways, right?
Yeah.
That's a big fish, man.
Oh, yeah.
When we catch something like that for fun or on TV, we're going nuts.
Oh,
we're,
yeah,
We're
for
high-fiving.
sure.
We're having a great time. So
For sure.
So it's got a good
You've got to be
multiple
in a
basis.
special place on the planet to catch consistently northern pike over 40 inches.
Oh,
like there
God.
are
It's
there's
rare.
enough there's so few that I could hold them in my hand.
Yeah, we just
of
got back from one.
locations like that.
Brabant.
Absolutely.
And that's
Brabant
one place.
Lodge is
They just posted one yesterday, 50 inches. I saw a video of a 50,
I don't doubt it.
51. It was 51 on the board.
really.
He squeezed the tail of 51 to the tip.
Yeah.
A pike.
Wow. And Peter actually sent me a picture the other day, texted it to me. I forgot to send it to you. He had a picture of 248s that
Oh,
they
my
got.
God.
They had a double header of 248 northern pike.
Can you imagine?
I know. Well, being there and seeing the fishery, yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
You know.
But it's almost like 248-inch muskies when you think about it. It's not, maybe it doesn't have the quote mystique of it or whatever. But 248-inch pike is, it's the same
I would argue.
shape. And,
I would argue that a 48-inch pike is like a 53 or 54-inch northern.
yeah, so it'd
Like,
be a
that's
double
the
header of
rarity.
53s or something like that.
Yeah, 100%. And folks, just by the way, Brabant Lodge is on the Mackenzie River, which flows out of Great Slave Lake in the Northwest Territories. So we're to try and compare this fishery to that, or
You can't do
compare
that.
any fishery to that fishery, you just can't.
No, you can't do that.
And that's why it's
But even a 40-inch
expensive.
pike up there, for people that don't catch a lot of pike, a 40-incher even up there is a good fish.
Oh,
right?
for sure.
When you get that beside your boat and you look at that, you go, oh my God, how big is this thing?
Yeah.
It's an impressive fish. Because a 40 to a 44, it's only a 4-inch difference, and you don't even really see that when they're in the water like that. Usually you see that on the board. They're just giants.
And they're
but even out
shaking
here,
them off at the side of
God.
the boat. They're shaking them off the hook.
what's the biggest pike you've seen out of this lodge?
The biggest one that I've seen here was 44 inches.
That's a massive pike, man.
That was
and this
that
is
was
not
the
northern
biggest.
Ontario. What do they call this? This is not really northern.
This is basically central
Yeah.
Ontario.
Yeah.
We're North Bay.
Yeah.
So we're 4 hours north of the GTA.
Yeah, which is not north compared to Northwest Ontario, Kenora. That's north. That's 20 hours. This is an easy drive to get to a place like this.
Well, from Toronto,
44-inch pike that's a big pike.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And that Kenora, just to put it in perspective, you could start in Toronto and drive to Florida in the same amount of time as it took us to drive to Nordic Point Lodge in Kenora.
That's insane.
Or if you took the province of Ontario and flipped it on its most southern point, folded it over top of the United States, the north end of Ontario is in the Gulf of Mexico. Like it is, people don't understand how big Ontario is.
Yeah, she's a beast of a province. That's for
Absolutely, with lots of water and lots of fish.
Sure. Yeah.
You
for
know.
sure. We'll close it off. How was our time, Demo? We're getting close, probably.
We're 45 minutes, so
Okay.
we're good anytime.
We're
here.
good.
Well,
Stevie wanted to talk about the incident yesterday.
Yeah, I was
with
going to
our-
say, you can't close it off yet.
Well, we got to. I'll set it up. So we got into one area, and we were just getting smaller fish, and then finally I got a pop on a jig, and it was boom. It was a perfect tap, not like a smallmouth. We're fishing for smallmouth, so I'm thinking, oh, well, maybe I got a walleye or a pike, just the way it hit, and it started fighting, pulling this. Okay, it was not a smallie because it didn't come near the surface, and all of a sudden it starts yanking. I said, guys, I might have a nice walleye on here like that, and then something came over my head. Steve told me about him and Pat years ago catching sheephead, and I said, unless it's a sheephead. And then I quickly tried to exit that out of my brain, thinking, no way.
Yeah,
like
but
that.
when we got first glimpse of this second...
No, the first one. I'm talking about the first one.
one.
And then all of a sudden he comes up and I go, oh, shit, it's a sheepy. And we all started laughing. I mean, Dean's in the back. He's even laughing. He's not shooting.
If you go back in the tape, you'll see that I was trying to build this wonderful creature up. I'm like, we like sheephead. Don't worry. It's good. The sheephead are good.
And you know what? And all in all, we did talk it up because we thought it was a smallmouth or a walleye because they fight that well. Like that would be a turbocharged walleye or a typical smallmouth without coming up like that and pulling drag and the whole 9 yards. So we get this big sheepy in. We laugh about it. We put it on video. Vova shoots it for us, and then throw it back and have our laughs. And then we get to the next spot, and this is our. This is a shallow reef that Steve was talking about where Matt actually was put us on to, and the spawners are there. And this one I didn't even feel tap. So this one was just a typical smallmouth bite on a Ned rig where you sort of lift into it and you say, oh, there's a fish there. And I set the hook and all of a sudden, everything, boom, the same thing. He starts pulling and pulling and pulling and then all of a sudden, and then we look down, Steve and I, now we're in shallow. So the other stuff was in 20 feet. This guy was in shallow. And I looked down and I would have swore, I'd have bet the farm it was I saw a smallmouth, what I saw down there. And Stevie said this, oh, it's a big smallie.
Yeah.
And he goes and grabs the net. And it was because the watercolor and these sheephead are different. They're a goldish color to begin with here. They're a little, like the Quinty ones are really white. So
and it's a little tannic, the water, so it's a little brown.
It's tea-colored, it's brownish. So it just looked like a smallie down there. And I said, dude, this is a big one. And Stevie goes, I know, I saw it down
excited.
there.
I said a little prayer in my mind. I'm like, thank you, God.
Get it in. And then I don't know what happened. It was and that was only at about 5 feet down. We could see it, and we thought it was a smallie. Once it got to about 3 feet, no, it's another sheepy.
Once it come up and it turned, and you really got a good look at the profile.
That ugly head and that
tail.
tail.
It's got a totally different profile from the side. And right away we knew.
Yeah, right ahead we knew. So we get the Stevie nets the sheepy, and it's all beautiful. Oh, we're laughing and ha ha ha. And I had it caught on a Ned rig, like I said, and I had a tiny little hook. I went really light because we were shallow, so I was a tiny little Ned. And when they get stuck, when I get a jig stuck, or a lot of people, when they get a flipping jig stuck in a bass's mouth, and it doesn't come out easy, you can pop it with your hand. You can just hit the head of the jig, and it pushes the hook out, and it just pops out like nothing. Sometimes it's the easiest way to do it. So instead of grabbing my pliers, I'll try that first. So I was on a little Ned rig, so I went pop like that, and as you hit it, you kind of hit the jaw of the fish too, or whatever like that. Well, I hit that. The fish started to shake, and he shit all over the boat. I mean, this thing, crap went flying like in every direction. I'm surprised it didn't hit the camera.
Wow!
And it didn't hit us, but it hit everything else around us. Right?
I gotta.
And it was green too.
Oh, it was terrible. But I gotta back this up a little bit, and how Peter's talking about just lightly popping it and hitting it on the jaw and this and that. And there's this polite, big, wonderful sheephead here, and he's being so kind to not move or nothing. And Peter's trying to pull the hook out, and then he had it by the bottom lip, and when he popped it right on the end of the nose. And if I was that sheephead and somebody hit me on the end of the nose, I would have shit all over too. And it was everywhere. It was on my feet.
Oh my God.
It was through my legs.
Gross.
It was on the console. It was on the floor. The only person that didn't get shit on was Peter.
I had her pointed in the right direction, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then he did a swath with it. like a
fire hose. Oh my God. So, and then at the very end, it's so I hope we can pull this off, because at the very end, Stevie thought the camera was not so. Of course, when it's all happening, we said poop, he had a poop or whatever, blah blah blah, and then Stevie, everything was kind of over. And a fish like that, sometimes we don't even show the release because we get caught, you know what I mean? Vova says cut, we all say cut because we don't think the audience doesn't want to see it, which is the wrong thing to do. We need to shoot everything. But then as Stevie, he got just out of it, oh my God, he shit everywhere. And he said shit about 2 or 3 times, and he started with an F-bomb or something in there.
I think I even dropped the F-bomb.
Oh,
but
you
hey,
did. But just let me say, I'm hoping that we can actually put that on the television with beeps, because Ange will probably look at it and say the same thing. We got it. If we can do it, we should do it, because we watched it last night. We laughed our asses off. Like the whole thing sequence was okay, but when Stevie came out with that stuff, it was the best part of the whole thing. We just laughed so hard. So
yeah, well, and I don't remember the last time we did show a sheephead on the Fishing Canada television show.
I did a show years ago.
With Kevin Lavers.
Yeah, I mean that's maybe 8-10 years ago, something like that. So they'll make the show. I think they'll make the show because it's part of the game, right? I mean, we have to show reality. We always like that. Ange and I have always said, let's show the realism of the world. If it's 6-inch smallmouth, no, we don't show that.
Yeah.
We don't. But if there's something like that happens, well, it's fun. You know what I mean? It was a funny time.
Fun.
So that was our highlight. Our two giant sheepies so far as a highlight of our trip. But I love the idea of looking for largemouth, deep smallmouth now. So we're going to do that today or tomorrow, depending on the weather here now, and then we're going to go from there. So hopefully we can pull off a show. I think we can. I think we'll just, put our minds to it. If it's raining, bad weather today, I'm going to just go out on a boat mission. I'm going to just drop the live scopes down. We got 2 live scopes in the boat, and I'm going to just chart. There's 2 areas I want to go in. I'm just going to chart it. I don't even cast probably. I'm going to mark waypoints, et cetera, and then hopefully it clears up tomorrow, and we can go out tomorrow and then use that to our advantage. Stevie's told me some stuff to go look at, and we together. It's funny. There was one spot I'm going to be checking out tomorrow. I says, I got one spot, and just before I said it, Stevie says, oh, and by the way, before we get out of that, go to this. And I said, that's the spot I'm looking at. We had the same thing in our mind, so hopefully things will turn out for us. So.
Yeah.
Anyways, anything else from the lodge, buddy? Anything
I think we covered it pretty much.
Yeah,
in closing, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be on the Outdoor Journal. I know as the host of Diaries of a Lodge Owner, I always love doing this with you guys and
us as well.
And
to the audience, remember we have a whole network of podcasts to listen to, not just the Outdoor Journal, not just Diaries. We got everybody else to listen to, so you'll see it. You can look it up on Spotify. So we have a bunch of good stuff for people to listen to.
That's great, and don't forget, always go over to fishingcanada.com and check out the giveaway page, because there's always wonderful stuff to get in on to win.
What's on Dean right now? Is it Garmin again? I thought I saw a Garmin.
Yeah,
thing.
by the time we have a Garmin all year, but by the time this is, I think there's a Quadix 7 watch.
Nice Garmin watches,
Marine.
folks.
Oh,
These things are awesome.
Yeah.
These things are amazing. They do more than you'll ever need, that's for sure. So, and just that, all you have to do is go to the website and sign up. You can go, when you're at the website, you can go to the store. Stevie's hat there, my hat here. These hoodies here that we're wearing right now,
wonderful
stuff.
stuff.
It's all good stuff there. I think it's a pretty fair price. Seems like it's a fair price. People are buying it and
It's
they're loving
cheap.
it. So
it's high quality and it's cheap.
This stuff, I'm telling you what, folks. These hoodies that we're wearing right now, they are so comfortable. It's ridiculous how nice they are for the price.
It's all from Timmy over at Campus Crew, and it's high quality. It's high quality stuff at affordable prices. It's awesome. I've been wearing this. This thing's been covered in
sheephead shit.
Sheephead shit. I was going to say sheep shit, but sheephead shit. It's been covered in musky slime, you name it, blood, and I wash it, and it comes out beautiful every time. It's really awesome stuff, and Tim does such a good job over there.
Sir.
And for the love of God, folks, go over and listen to Diaries of a Lodge Owner.
Oh,
yeah, I'll take the cheap plug.
Boy, I don't blame you, buddy. Why not, right?
Yes,
absolutely.
sir.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks for sitting in. Thanks, everybody, for listening and watching, et cetera, et cetera. Another On the Road again with the Outdoor Journal Radio podcast, and we will talk to you again very, very soon. Ciao.